I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.
Welcome to Cookies, the world's most influential basketball podcast. We are here, sunny aftermath of Super Bowl, something Roman numerals. I don't know exactly what it is. Andrew, maybe you can help out.
I cannot, but I am enjoying the Super Bowl day of observance. You know, yesterday was the game, but today there's no work being done. People aren't picking up garbage.
That's just Lincoln's birthday.
Oh,
Lincoln's
well,
birthday. What's the phrase they use when you don't have to park? It's like, it's not the day we celebrate it, observed.
That's what I'm
Lincoln's
saying.
birthday observed. I saw it today that it was Lincoln's birthday, and I didn't have to move my car.
Yeah, man. Well, there's been discussions that certain Super Bowl fans want it moved to Saturday so they can spend Sunday recovering, and Monday would be business as usual. But there's been a government hack, or maybe like a statewide hack. It's like, let's just celebrate Lincoln's birthday. Let's make this like National Compliment Day, and everyone can just not pick up garbage, and you can recover from your the one beer you had last night.
Let's observe Lincoln's birthday. Mm-hmm. To me, I always like that the Super Bowl is on a Sunday because it feels appropriate because it's called Super Bowl Sunday. So I feel like changing it to a different day really changes Super Bowl Sunday as an entity. But I like that it was the end of the weekend. It's like a special extra day on your weekend. And yes, everyone's going to have too much 7-layer dip and one too many beers, being one total. But it's an addition to your typical weekend.
Well,
I got to say, though, Quo, I didn't even watch it.
I know. I was going to say, there's a lot of cynicism in that tone because you didn't do shit about the Super Bowl.
I have no cynicism. I'm not one of those sports ball people. I have a basketball podcast and a basketball brand and a basketball book. You may have heard of some of these things.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
I love athletics. What I'm saying here is I like a Super Bowl party. But in terms of watching the game itself, I just don't follow the sport enough that it feels like stolen valor to tune in on its biggest day and pretend that I was there all along. Now, if you got the 7-layer dip, I'll show up.
Like even like Jennifer Lopez, Bad Bunny, like even if the performer was Jay-Z or classic hip hoppers or even Rihanna, we can all agree Rihanna's the number one NBA fan alive. Even the allure of a whole halftime performance of hers isn't making you tune in.
The last one that I watched, at least the halftime that I can recall, was might have even been last year. What was the one that was like an ode to West Coast rap?
The Dr. Dre mashup with Mike Kelly, kind of like those white industrial complex or those white domestic complexes. It was kind of a beautiful optic, but
yeah, I felt like there was Kendrick and Snoop and a bunch of other people, maybe Eminem or 50 Cent, just variously. I think it was just a Dr. Dre tribute, actually.
Yes, it was, and it was the time the crooked media accused 50 Cent of being a vampire because he arrived to his moment upside down, allegedly improvised on the spot, but maybe not.
I mean, that was kind of a scene in the his huge video though that blew up too.
Mm-hmm. But he wasn't planning to do that allegedly, and then when he saw the apparatus, he was like, "I'm going upside down, fellas."
No, well, I couldn't tell you either way, but that's the last one I saw. But that may have also been last year. I just don't recall.
So there's certain sports blind spots like that you have, like the Super Bowl, totally. Super Bowl halftime show. The NBA draft you don't enjoy. You don't enjoy college basketball. The NCAA March Madness tournament is not for you. Is it mostly because of the commercialization of these events?
No, it's because I am just more of a dog when it comes to the NBA. You know, like you look at my chest, you see 3 various snarling pups.
Wow. All
Because
pit
that's how
bulls.
much I focus on basketball, not like you other like dilettantes who are dabbling in other sports. I'm focused. I am generally practicing my form.
So what were you doing not
gooseneck.
watching? Yeah.
I was practicing my form. Gooseneck, like hand in the cookie jar. Gooseneck, hand in the cookie jar. Balance, elbow in. Meanwhile, you're over there. Go, Riri. Pathetic.
So when you said you like a Super Bowl party, I have never been to a Super Bowl party that I enjoyed. Now, I used to throw an event like in my early 20s, late teens called the Beer Bowl. And basically everyone who showed up to this party it was college would divide up into 2 teams. And we had a taped off field in the middle of a living room with like hash marks and different delineations. And you would line up empty beer cans to score touchdowns. And if your team would just have to chug as much more beers than the other team. And there were different things, like if you had 3 hot dogs, you could take away one of their cans.
That sounds a lot more like the Beef Bowl.
There's various versions of this. I did this when I was really young, and it was really fun because people
Okay, one fistful of venison. How far does that get me?
it doesn't get you anywhere unless is there a deer-related football team?
Yeah, the Deer Bowl.
Is it the Deer Bowl a thing?
Is it the Deer Bowl, the Beer Bowl, or the Beef Bowl?
I don't know what the Deer Bowl is.
Okay. So tell me, all right, so how are people moving along these hash marks? Is it just by volume drinking?
Empty cans would just line up next to each other. So you don't want to buy slim cans. Like, the wider the can, the standard can is the one. No one should bring in a 40 because that just counts as one beer. So you have to drink.
I feel like Modelo's are nice. They have a sort of Lowry-esque base. They give you a little more girthiness for your 12 ounces.
Budweisers were perfect. Bud Lights even worked, but it turns out like the difference between drinking a Bud Light and a Budweiser is the same. Like no one can drink more Bud Light. You know what I mean? People just drank what they drank, but it was fun. It became a thing in college where people wanted to come to this party because it wasn't really about the game. It was about watching certain people humiliate themselves. And, I believe the score of the game also had an impact. So if your team scored a touchdown, you take away 1 can of beer. And at halftime, you could create feats of like challenges, like Seinfeld feats of strength. So I challenge you to do 50 pull-ups. If you can do 50 pull-ups, you take away 1 of my cans. If you can't, I take away 2 of your cans. And
50 pull-ups for 1 can is a hard bargain.
It was done easily, kind of, by certain people. Like you can nominate people, like it was done. But it was really fun. And at some point we almost had Vice like do a televised version of it in Brooklyn, but it just got so jockey and so intense that I just lost interest entirely.
Yeah, I remember they brought in Bill Bellamy, who was going to host it. Aaliyah was there.
Aaliyah.
Duchovny showed up. It's kind of the rock and jock of beer-related events.
Yeah.
I think you can have a good Super Bowl party, but it really comes down to, do you have a whole bunch of people and do you have food? And is there, you need a couple people who care about the outcome of the game, but you don't really want everyone caring about the outcome of the game.
See, I kind of agree with that part. I disagree with the food part. I think there should be little to no food at every party because you walk in, you're like, holy cow, there's all this delicious pizza, nachos, wings, poppers, whatever, And you have a couple and you're like, I'm assed out. When does the game start? Like, not for another hour. It's like, Jesus Christ. And people start like taking naps, nodding off. And invariably, the 1 or 2 people who do care about the game, And like the chances of them being upset through the course of the game is like 30%. It's just not a good vibe. I don't like Super Bowl parties.
I feel like I've enjoyed a few that had a lot of people. There were like some kids around. It was just very wholesome. But, I mean, they would not be my favorite kind of party.
No.
And I didn't care enough to find one yesterday.
I mean,
But that's because I was working on my jumper, man.
right. I guess my take is there's no good Super Bowl party. Because invariably it would make the game would make someone upset. Or if they don't care about who wins, then they don't care about the game in general. And a ton of bad food being eaten in volume is never like a great party vibe. Like you don't want to have 5 slices of pizza. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, you're telling me that you never want to have 5 slices of pizza? That sounds like a goddamn lie.
Well, I'm not at a party. I'm having pizza.
Look, I want to talk about Rihanna. You want to talk about pizza.
Okay.
Look, here's what I have to say about it. Epic fail. Rihanna gave, without question, the single worst halftime show in Super Bowl history. After insulting far more than half of our nation, which is already in serious decline with her foul and insulting language. I wrote that on Truth Social Sunday night. And then you know what I added? So much for her stylist. That was me, the former president of the United States, on my own social network.
I mean, did you see all that, like, Marjorie Taylor Greene, like, why do we need 2 songs before every game? Are we trying to divide this country? And I was trying to think of the last time we argued over songs. Like, Star Spangled Banner is my jam. It's like, nope. God Bless America only, and as much as you can. Like, it was pretty funny. Like, we argue about, like, flats versus drumettes more than we do, like, which songs are better in the beginning of a football game. But,
Wait, they're doing multiple songs now?
always. Yeah, I mean, it's a whole production. Like, they have multiple singers, multiple songs. I mean, it's hard to talk about because it sounds like you fucking hate this thing. So, like, I love it. Like, so it's hard for me to talk about this.
Look, I'm a patriot. I just
Right.
feel like you can get away with like the Star Spangled Banner.
Well, they're selling ads, right? So why would you make it quick?
Yeah, but do they have to be patriotic songs? Couldn't they just be like, and there's a slapper?
I mean, there's a lot of people who
And
got
RX Poppy is here to do 12 Stout Street.
there was people who were mad at there was the Army pays for screen time at for the NFL. They have a contract, and then they had a Pat Tillman he was in a montage of like our troops, and the internet went wild. They were just like, well, tell him how he got killed. Like, cool, and it was like died in the line of duty, and I'm like, well, yeah, he did, but like the people who think that they're going to be like, he was killed by his own guys, like, what are we doing? So we want the NFL, a company, to like own itself. Like, you're taking to Twitter with it, which is enough, right? Like, I don't know. So I got conflicted with this idea of like, are we watching this? How serious are we when we're watching this and talking about it? Because like, I think the easy way out would be like, it's all bullshit. All of it, every single part of it's bullshit. I'm like, well, it's true. If not, I don't know, whatever. Like, Christmas is bullshit. This is Kyrie Irving, right? Like, I don't care about your Thanksgiving. I hope you have a good dinner with your family. That sounds cool. I don't care. Like, that's the Super Bowl. But like, the Super Bowl does a lot of things that are fucking hilarious. Like, not only the commercials, but like the Rihanna halftime show was fucking amazing, but not for the reason of like how the J-Lo halftime show was.
They should have showed Tillman while playing your favorite indie sleaze British band, the Friendly Fires, in the background. Mm-hmm. See that? That's how we do.
God, it's
Bing
really hard to
bong.
talk. It's really hard to talk about this with you. It's almost like talking about the draft with you. You're like, yeah, okay, this guy number 1 pick sounds fucking great. It's like, who did the Sixers draft? Whoop-de-doo.
Okay. So, would you say you preferred the pomp or the circumstance this time around?
Jesus Christ. Well, Rihanna was amazing because, as you know, the reveal is whatever. She was pregnant again. But she wasn't moving that much. And you're just like, oh, this is like, I really enjoy like 2023 as like the revenge of the slacker. It's just like coming up again and again. And she was like smiling, not really mouthing the words, like just like barely dancing on a platform. And I was like, this is incredible. This is what I want from Rihanna, because she was getting a lot of heat for saying years ago she had turned it down out of solidarity with Colin Kaepernick. And then all of a sudden she does it. And there's people who are like, well, she doesn't get paid anyway, whatever. Like, of course she gets paid. But
well, just out of curiosity, because I'm aware of that dynamic.
Oh, you're aware of it.
Nice. How she said that she wasn't going to do it in the past, and yet here she is doing it. What changed? Like, did she ever explain why she was willing to sell out her Gen X principles?
She did not. But
bitch better have my money indeed.
She started with that song. She opened with that song, which was funny because it was not only bleeped, but it was the visual reveal, which was like an old 8-bit like Nintendo game where you like jump on platforms. I think it was like, what was that jousting game where you had those like large birds and you jump from platform to platform? I don't know. I'm dating myself, but it looked like that. And it was hilarious, but it was really impressive too because she was like a zillion feet high up in the stadium. It pulled back and you can see the entire crowd. It was kind of awesome. She was strapped in. She didn't move much. I wouldn't either on that platform. Terrifying. And she started with "Bitch Better Have My Money," which she alleged was about her landlord or some real estate deal that had gone wrong. Like she had maybe invested in something that needed a certain return at a certain date. But I thought it was like some gangster stuff, obviously, the appeal of that line. But it was a surprising line to open it with. I love this shit, man. And she barely moved throughout the entire performance and it was very budget. The whole thing felt very not planned and there was like no care put into it. There was no guests. Her catalog is incredible. So going through all those songs is amazing. She didn't really perform them as opposed to like a bunch of dancers dancing around her as the songs were playing. I thought it was kind of amazing.
Do you remember the original song, "Bitch Better Have My Money"?
Maybe not hers.
By West Coast rapper AMG.
No, I do not, but
same sample. Bitch better have my money. That same sample.
Was there a lawsuit involved in this? Did he sue her? Am I remembering that correctly?
Maybe. I mean, his song was about like being a pimp, which is what the phrase "bitch better have my money" is about.
Of course, gangster stuff.
And his hook is just "bitch better have my money" 8 times.
I mean, amazing hook. I believe there was some sort of like it's coming back to me, but I mean, I guess the moral or the takeaway of this was like it was very lackluster in terms of a performance, but so well received because we just love her so much, right? Everyone's like, A+, that was amazing. Did you see that dress? She's pregnant, god damn it. Like it was kind of interesting. It wasn't the normal critique of the halftime show.
And in the words of AMG from his seminal record, "Bitch Better Have My Money," see until it's cold.
Wow.
Good one. It's a good line.
It's sort of like a pile of nachos at a Super Bowl party, and when you can't eat enough, like there's no real going back to like nacho cheese when it gets cold.
Well, FYI, he doesn't charge by the inch. He charges by the foot.
Wow. That's a lot of information.
And if you think he's lying, Quo, take a look.
All right. Let's talk about something you do know about.
All right. Okay. Well, what I do know about is I nothing more, nothing less.
Yo, easy, man. Gen Z does
I'm
not
just
appreciate this.
I'm just reading AMG lyrics. Sorry.
Yo, like no more
me.
intimate scenes in shows. No more in songs. This is what Gen Z demands.
That's my dude. I was just reading the lyrics. It's like, the little disclaimer on the top of your Twitter account. These are not the opinions expressed here, are not those of me, my employer, or something along those lines. What's the story with that whole thing about sex scenes? That there was a guy, an actor, who says he's not going to do them because he respects women or something like that.
So it's the actor from the series You, and I think an old teen show. I forget, Gossip Girl, maybe. I forget. That's not my lane, but I've seen all 4 seasons of You. I kind of like that show. It's about a psychopath who's kind of a lovable main character. But he got married to, I believe, a Kirk, of the Kirk family from Girls. And he says he no longer wants to do intimate scenes in his art, in his shows and movies, because he doesn't want to break that trust with his wife. And which is totally valid. Cool, And a lot of people, one viral person on Twitter was like, God, thank God, we don't need to we don't have to have these things in movies, and it just kind of so great of him to talk about this and put it out into the open. And there was a lot of debate about that. I don't know, man. If he doesn't want to do it, he doesn't have to. Just fire up the AI machine and get a robot version of him to do it.
I saw someone had tweeted out what appeared to be a fan theory. And they said, why are we taking this seriously? This is clearly a result of him cheating on his wife. This is someone who has violated the trust of fidelity and is now that's right, I won't even be around women on movie sets anymore if that'll make you happy. And that theory, that kind of rung true. Because the idea that someone would say, I can't do sex scenes in movies or be intimate with a woman actress because that would violate the sanctity of my marriage, that feels like something that maybe a hyper-religious actor might do.
Puritan.
Someone who, someone puritanical. Oh no, this is sacred. Because otherwise, everyone understands that this is acting. Oh, I won't kill somebody in a movie. I mean, it's not real. There's a camera crew there. Everyone knows it's not real. I don't know. Whatever. I'm not an actor. People can do whatever they want. But then this also kind of what you were referring to before. The Gen Z was, well, what's the point of a sex scene in a movie anyway? And I was kind of thinking about that. I was like, some of them are just, okay, Halle Berry is going to show her boobs in Swordfish. Come check the movie out. You can see Halle Berry's boobs. Would you like to see them? They're in our movie. That definitely had no point whatsoever.
That was gratuitous.
But also it was totally gratuitous, but it also wasn't even sexy. It was just gratuitous.
Right.
But then there are the movies where you're like, okay, this is an erotic thriller. That's kind of the point of the movie. Yeah. I feel like we don't really have those as much anymore. But that Michael Douglas was in a bunch of them, the God. But
Famously.
that was just very much a subsect of 80s and 90s cinema. Was the erotic thriller. I don't know that they really do them too much. I guess Affleck and Damon are trying to do that with the Nike movie. But no, it was what's her name, Anna Armas and Affleck were in one that was supposed to be pretty steamy. I never saw it.
Adrian Lynn, right? Yeah, we talked about it when it came out, and it was not. But she is one of the originators. I forget which one. She worked with Mickey Rourke, right? Did she do all those things? Well, I didn't live. I wasn't doing a pod in the 70s.
Oh shit! I'm just gonna put this on the show because it's so funny. The Cookie Soup store. This is a little peek behind the veil, right? I was communicating with someone during our pod. This is good. Trust me, Andrew. This is good. And making sure the store is all running properly. and it was recording me as I said, "Bitch better have my money. It's about being a pimp." That's oh shit.
Oh, you mean it was dictating it and putting it in a response?
Yes.
Wow.
About sweatshirts. Anyway, sorry folks. I thought you'd like to know. That's a little peek behind the inner workings.
Oh, right.
Anyway, sorry to interrupt you. I just looked at that. I was like, I'm glad that was not going somewhere else.
Do you tape all your cameras on your devices?
No, I used to tape it on the laptop though. Just a little knob over the camera, but then I stopped since I now actually use like FaceTime on it a lot.
Yeah, I've always done that out of habit because the nerds I'm around told me to, like, whatever. As soon as they started putting all these surveillance things in our devices. And then now I've been talking to these same nerds, and they're like, well, it seems like the strategy is to like inundate these companies with all the information because like having one password is easy to guess, but having 20, it's sort of like that chaos thing in like game theory. Like, well, if you give them too much and a little bit of irregular information, then like maybe someone won't get to your credit card as easily. No one knows at this point.
That kind of checks out, I guess.
I don't know. Yeah, but I was wondering because I tape over all my cameras, but there's no way to tape over microphones because we use them so much, and I forget to like do it.
But you can, at least on your phone, turn off the microphone, and
allegedly, yes.
I mean, that's true. But they'll always ask you to turn it on. So I presume that Apple, maybe at least for third parties, lets you turn it off. Just because, like, the main ones are Instagram, Twitter, anything that records your audio. Everything else, you can turn the audio off if they want.
I was always suspect of those. I don't even know what to call them. Those things you put in your home that like Google, Apple, they all make them. It's like hubs, right? Like they're like, oh, they're cheap. They're $50 now. I'm like, well, what's the benefit for them? I'm like, oh, they get to monitor your entire like behavior process. So like, I don't know what they're gonna do with it. It's probably just to sell you Rihanna halftime shows, but like, that's interesting. I don't know.
I agree. It's one of those things where they seem so sinister, and ultimately they are probably just for completely mundane money-making bullshit.
Yeah.
As you said, we're going to spy on everything they say. We're going to harvest all their information, and then we're going to know when they need paper towels.
Yeah.
But that doesn't change the fact that they're harvesting all your information, listening to every word you say, and compiling this digital dossier on you that extends for years and intrudes in every part of your life, just so they can sell you paper towels.
They have it just in case. And like, you can go on. There's sites that you can easily Google that tell you when to post certain ideas on social media to get the most interactions. So it'd be like, hey, on Tuesday, if you want to post about like the stock market, like 2 to 4 p.m. If you want to post something about like your own personal stuff, like when to get interactions on a joke, like post it between like 5 and 6 on Thursday. It's amazing. Like some of this information is gettable, but the problem I had with the Super Bowl yesterday was it just seemed like it was run through a buzzsaw of just like the average of everything. No one was shooting for like a little bit of a reach. Everything was like M&M's. We called it on cookies. M&M's like, the characters are back. I'm like, well, we know this. It was just like a way to get attention 2 weeks ago, but it didn't. Same with Rihanna's performance. There was no like tiger. She wasn't riding a tiger breathing fire or a lion. There was no like moment, like a Colleen Estrada moment, right, where she like comes out dressed up as like a someone's version of a horse, like there was no moment like that. It was just Rihanna in a really beautiful red dress.
Yeah, speaking of that, excellent segue. So I did go to the Colleen Estrada show. Shout out to that brand, friend of the pod. Hillary Tamor, the creative director, has been a guest on here, and they've been the brand has been in our tournaments. Love them.
Hell
and
yeah.
They had their performance, their first show. I think they were opening day on the New York Fashion Week calendar. It was held at what's going to be a THC museum that is still under construction on Bowery and Canal. It's like 5-6 floors up. It was a hike.
All about weed?
None of that stuff was in there yet, though. It's still like very much under construction. It's kind of just an empty building, but it's going to be, or at least several floors of it, a museum about weed.
So like one floor is like Beavis and Butthead was a television show. Like it's going to be like that? Or is it going to be like an immersive thing? Oh, this sounds great. An immersive like Van Gogh experience, but just like weed.
I have no idea. It's like floor 4 is just like about sour diesel.
It's like puffing on the subway. But anyway.
Sour 6, the chronic. I don't know what the actual infrastructure of it will be, but it is a large building, and I guess I presume those floors are all part of the museum. I have no idea. But her show, as you mentioned, had models wearing like prosthetic parts of masks to make them look like animals. And I was there at the show. It was quite fun. And there was reptilian heads and duck bills.
Big ears.
Whiskers and, yeah, exactly. Pig ears and dog ears. All these things like that. It was all cute. And then I saw people like really mad about it on social media. It's like,
good.
The New York Post was mad about it. And then whatever the British counterpart to that is basically regurgitated the same article. And like, just using people on the internet saying, what kind of bullshit is this? This sucks, as like parts of the article, which was strange. And I'm like, are they doing this because there was like, a trans model or something? Why is the New York Post writing about this? It was a little weird. But like, what was their dog whistle? No pun intended. Were they trying to get their like conservative fan base riled up about the fact that like there's like trans models in wheelchairs and people are wearing pig's noses, and it was supposed to be that like fashion is like this liberal hellhole or something. I don't even know what their agenda was, probably. But yeah, people were like kind of roasting it for the masks. I'm like, but what do you care though? Why does that matter at all? Like like Hillary's a vegetarian and almost a vegan, generally speaking, and like that was kind of the theme. It was like, don't eat our friends. It was like a pro-vegetarian show. So she had like models and animal faces. But I'm like, that has nothing to do with the clothes. Like if you like the clothes or you don't like them, that's what the show is about. To get bent out of shape or get hand-wringing because someone's wearing like dog ears seems kind of bizarre.
But isn't that the thing, right? Like, I don't think Ben Shapiro is a Celtics fan, but he's not watching Kyrie Irving. But he's just like, is Kyrie Irving too woke for his own good? And it's like, well, that doesn't have anything to do with the game.
Wait, did you say you weren't sure if he was a Celtics fan?
No, he is a Celtics fan, but I'm not sure if he's watching Kyrie Irving games. Right?
He is BMM.
Yes, but he's not watching the Nets, right? And like, if he's just like, yo, that team is like morally corrupt, I'm like, well, they're winning a ton of games. But I get why he's doing that, right? And that, I'm glad Hillary does stuff like that, because like, first of all, not everyone's supposed to like everything. Like if Barack Obama was like, hey, this is on my top 10 New York Fashion Week things, you'd be like, ooh, that's not what I was going for, but not everyone's supposed to just be like, that's cool. She's speaking to a specific kind of sensibility, I think. But it is fair game at that point for someone to just be like, I think that's fucking terrible. And the New York Post might be like, well, you're not going to read this article if I just think it's good, if I have it.
Totally. Oh, I get why they did it. I'm mostly just saying, like, for people to be like, can you believe this?
Yeah.
Fashion Week is supposed to be for like a conservative elegance.
Yeah.
I'm here in my I had my what they even be wearing? What's the New York Post target audience wearing? Like, I'm out here in Long Island.
Shoes, track pants.
My NYPD hat.
Antisocial social. No, that's over. There's no more streetwear. That's for sure.
Chuckles leather.
Yeah, and Eminem's leather without the characters, without the horny characters.
I had to dump that after the whole thing before the Super Bowl. Can't even wear that anymore.
I know. But so what else did you do this?
But anyway, you do make a good point. You make a good point. It's not for everyone. I was just surprised to see people really fixated on the masks because like ultimately that isn't even what the show is about. But it didn't shock me either. That was the only thing I really did. We rolled around the city on Friday night. Really warm during the day. That was the opening. That was the opening first day of the calendar.
Did you go to any jeans parties, like at the new venue, Jeans?
I didn't. I saw there was a few parties up at Boom Boom Room. I'm glad that that's still getting some use. It's still it's kind of like It's kind of like the Garden. It just has that same ceiling as when you go to see a Knicks court. It looks like the Garden. That almost kind of stem that goes through the middle of the bar and then kind of spreads across the ceiling. There's just
it's a beautiful room for sure.
Something about it that looks great.
It's amazing. But and there's an adjacent club. I consider the Boom Boom Room the adjacent room with the shallow pool, the dark DJ booth, the access to the roof.
Le Bon.
Okay, maybe I'm then getting them confused because I've always thought the Boom Boom Room was that room. And the Boom Boom Room.
No.
The Boom Boom Room is the beautiful room.
Boom Boom is the beautiful room. Le Bon is the one that had the pool that is now gone. My lord, the diseases that must have gotten spread from that foul body of water.
That's disgusting. It's disgusting. I've DJ'd some parties in both rooms. The dark pool room is amazing. That's a great time. I've DJ'd a bunch in the Boom Boom Room. It is tough, man. It is like no matter what you do, it has a wedding vibe through and through.
There's only a small area where you could conceivably dance in front of the DJ booth, and then there's seating around of it, and a lot of that seating is sunken, especially along the opposite side, where it's actually you're kind of even below the party itself. But there have been some like really, really good parties there, and it still is a mainstay for like I don't know, like post Met Gala parties. For sure. Heron's party. Shout out to Heron, who was at our book release party. He had his first New York show, and the after party was at Boom Boom yesterday.
Man, and art people are like buzzy artists are still doing parties at the Boom Boom Room after their like debut blue chip shows, and like it's an amazing room, man. Like it is kind of too big to fail because the views and the architecture inside are just like kind of amazing, man.
Yeah, I still like it. It feels like you're in the right spot as long as there's people there. But as soon as it starts emptying out, it gets like I think it's because there's like carpeting.
Yeah.
So it gets real hushed really quick.
And it's sort of like the Luger's effect. If there's not many people in there to jostle through like a salmon swimming upstream, you start noticing like the upholstery and the carpet. You're like, ooh, everything's kind of like stained up in here and the upholstery's kind of coming off. Right. You know, it's like seen a lot of wear and tear.
Yeah, you need like a couple Olsons to distract you.
Yeah, or 3 if you're lucky.
4 Olsons?
Is there a 4th Olsen? There is, right? There's a 4th Olsen sister.
I only think of the 2, but I guess you can keep adding Olsons.
I mean, someone clearly doesn't like the movies because the most famous Olsen is the actor, right? Elizabeth Olsen.
Yeah, maybe so.
Wow.
What about Alex Olsen? Can we include him?
Is that yes? There's 2 Alex Olsens. There's a painter, Alex Olsen, and then there's a skater, Alex Olsen.
So 5 Olsens. We're up to 5.
5 Olsens. Sadly, there's no NBA player named Olsen that I can think of. There's plenty of baseball players named Olsen, but we're not doing that pod.
No, we're not.
Nope.
I don't know if people were smoking at Boom Boom this time around.
Sometimes they
Typically
are, right?
Typically they send people up to the roof, but there have been times when the cigarettes have come out, and that's a throwback to a different era. Playing with the darts, different era. But I thought I saw some discourse online where the woman was talking about how like And to be clear, she's talking about in Philadelphia. I'm not familiar with how the subway system there. I don't know if people are smoking there regularly. She made a post on Twitter that people talked about. And she said, to paraphrase, I don't think I even have the exact quote, but she said something along the lines of, oh, wait, I got it. I would like to be able to ride the subway with my 4-month-old baby and not be in a car with people smoking. Now, again, maybe Philly people are just smoking cigs constantly on the subway. I don't know.
Are they talking tobacco or are they talking like weed? THC museum style.
She doesn't say.
Let's just assume it's tobacco.
Yeah. And people were like, well, we should call the cops. People are smoking. Other people are like, well, stop being a cop.
Oh, that's the old reversal, the cop reversal technique.
The classic judo move for law enforcement. Hey, cop, you know who's the cop? You're the cop.
Jedi mind tricks. Yep.
My main thoughts were like, yeah, no one likes cigarettes on the train. At least speaking for New York City, I've seen it, I don't know, 5 times total in many, many, many years riding the train constantly. You know, it just doesn't happen that much. Once in a while, someone who is almost always, at least visually, looks mentally ill is the one doing it, or is incredibly intoxicated, inebriated, on drugs, whatever the case may be. It's never just someone like, oh man, what a day. Let me crack this pack of Pall Malls and have myself a dart. It's always someone who looks in some kind of duress, like Jalen Brunson on an average NBA player. But it's very rare. So I was also thinking about in this whole conversation, like this shift from everyone saying, wow, that's so horrible that you have to deal with that. That like even within our lifespans, you could smoke on planes. You could smoke in restaurants.
Well, we're old as hell, right? Like we
We're
know
old,
what,
but even
right.
we're old, but even people who weren't that old in their lifetime, you could go to foreign countries and you could smoke in or other cities. You can smoke in bars, you could smoke in restaurants. You could smoke in airports in like the 2000s.
Red Auerbach lighting up that cigar on the court.
I mean, Paris, you can't smoke in bars now, really. I mean, some you can. But
Asia's a lot tighter.
That's not that recent. I mean, that's fairly recent, excuse me. I mean, even New York, it's been like, what, 20 years? But anyway, the point I was saying was that it's wild how something that was completely normal, now someone says, like, infers that her baby is being harmed by someone smoking a cigarette in the same subway train. So my thing is like, no one likes it. It's not that common. But also, it is not hurting your baby at all.
As someone with a baby who has not been in this situation, I kind of can commiserate because they're not talking about like emphysema or cancer. They're like, yo, my baby's going to start coughing and crying for the next hour. Do we want this? You know, like this is like shining like a strobe light in this baby's eye. And like,
I know what you're saying, but you know what this sounds like?
cop
Think
behavior.
of the children. No, it sounds like the think of the children where it's like, I don't like this. So I'm going to say that it's my child that it's having a negative bearing upon. It's like, I think this music is offensive. You know who that's going to hurt? My kid.
I guess people get weird about babies, but if we remove the baby aspect of it and make like a 10-year-old, like that seems more like it. Being like, we cannot bring our kids up to like be, you know, troubled by these romantic scenes in movies and people smoking cigarettes, you know. But I think
Go ahead. You're the one with the little child. You're the one who this woman is speaking for. She is stepping up to the plate for all the people who are carrying the little imps.
I think smoking is like, I'm friends with a lot of smokers. Many of my closest friends picked up smoking again. I can count 5 maybe. And like, I'm down for smoking as a thing. It doesn't really bat my eye. But as we're getting older, I'm like, well, yeah, it's complicated because it is, is a straight line towards bad stuff that everyone knows about. But our remaining like years of like hubris are to be treasured, and like I think you could still do that, and it is empowering to know that you can make your own decisions. Like I love all that stuff. I think my friends who jones for cigarettes should have cigarettes. I never say like hold it tight. I'm like you have one, take the edge off a little bit. But I do think it's like deeply uncool. So like this whole debate to me is like, yeah, you're probably better off smoking, not just for your health. It's like wearing on shoes and like, it's like, that's the vibe I have from it. It's like smoking is kind of like, just like, it ain't what it used to be. Let's just say that. Like at one point I thought showing up to a party dressed up like Capone from Capone and Noriega was cool. Not so much anymore, right? Like stuff changes, and if someone rolled up dressed up in desert camo from head to toe, I'd be like, I know where you're going with this, but like maybe not in this subway car, sir.
I hear that. I think it's gross to have smoking in places where people haven't made a conscious decision to be around it, and I think it's an improvement to not have it in bars and restaurants.
Right.
Whatever your stance on smoking inside, I'm going to call them public places, but what I mean is places that you are allowed to go, and some of those,
or you pay $3 to go.
Right, you'd have to be of age or have an ID, whatever. But I'm going to call those public places. Yeah. To come home and not have all of your clothing stink of cigarettes is nice. I've been overseas in places where those laws have much less rigor, and it's wild to be like, wait, my clothes after 3 days just reek. Everything reeks. It's foul.
Sounds like indie sleaze, yeah.
It really does, yes.
Yeah.
It's really gross. You're just like, oh, that's cool. Everything in my suitcase is just vile at this point. But that said, I also do think, considering the history of the amount of people who have smoked around their kids for like hundreds of years, I just don't like when someone says, like, well, my 4-month-old baby, as if like the baby is going to like develop a health problem by someone 15 feet away smoking a cigarette. Like, Come on.
Yeah.
That's my only thing that I feel like, as you said, if it was a 10-year-old, be like, well, it's not going to hurt a 10-year-old, but because it's a baby, there's this like veneer of fragility. It's like you're also carrying the baby. You could just walk.
Yeah.
You could just go away from it.
I think what I've been thinking about for a while is like the whole MSG thing, not where the ghosts of the Knicks used to play, but monosodium glutamate, right? We all know about the biases there, like the kind of undercover racism kind of, and it was debunked like years ago. David Chang helped, all these people helped, scientists, whatever, like, Chinese food syndrome is not a real thing. It is MSG is a naturally occurring thing, yada yada. It was based on a racist research paper that wasn't even done by scientists, whatever. But then I've come around and I've thought like, if a restaurant is like, hey, we use MSG, fuck you, eat here or not, it's not gonna kill you, don't be racist. I'm like, but sugar in certain portions is also not fatal, and I think we overreact with sugar all the time too. And I'm like, I cannot tell another person what they are comfortable with putting in their body. I know MSG won't kill them. I know a cigarette won't kill them. I know sugar won't kill them. But if they're like, hey man, like I just haven't had sugar in like a while and I just don't want sugar in my food, I'm like, totally. We don't have to say like, you're in a restaurant, you must eat this sugar. It's like, these are the items with sugar in them, and these are not like, that's all we can give you. But to be explicitly clear about that is the point. If you walk into a subway car and you're not clear about what you're getting into, like, then I'm just like, can we have a smoking car? Can you like puff your brains out in a third car after the flash mob car and after like the hookup car? Like, can we have cars where we just know what's happening? So like cop mothers and fathers can go into their cop car.
Oh, it looks like I'm in the gay car. Is this the gay smoking car?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I got 2 back.
Wait, It's
Which one is this? Is this a Knicks fan car? Is this Bing Bong Fuck Your Life? Oh no, Josh Hart is here.
Is it Karma Chameleon? Is there a song playing? Is there an Asian snapping his fingers in the corner of this car? I'm in the flash mob car. The smoking flash mob car.
I mean, all these things, like these kind of these little social scandals, they strike me as like the small aggravations of life being blown into like I'm being oppressed. Being oppressed by that random homeless guy who I see once every 2 months who smokes a cigarette. Like he is inflicting his will upon me. Is it too much to ask to not have him smoking when I get on this train? Well, no, that I don't think that's too much to ask. But what's your solution? That like he should be jailed for smoking a cigarette on a train? Like you grow up. I don't know. There's an article today about like dogs getting sick from discarded weed. Like, I'm sympathetic. Like, I guess. Like, yeah, it sucks if your dog's high as hell.
I mean,
Like that stinks. You know, your dog's getting stumbling around and it's got the munchies. Like playing hacky sack.
I mean, I think
Dog won't stop watching Seth Rogen movies.
I think it's like various degrees of like whatever kind of spectrum we want to talk about, whatever kind of thing that we've developed. But, you know, I was thinking like I like to recycle. I make sure the recycling is easy to figure out, like, you know, no soft plastics, only hard plastics in that bag, and then paper in this one, tie them together with like not tape, but like twine that can decompose. I do all that stuff. And then there's a mushroom cloud in Ohio. Then I'm like, I wasn't even close to that thing. God damn it. You know? And it's like, I understand why people might feel like they don't have enough power and why small things enrage them, right? Because like, that's why I want my friends to smoke cigarettes who want to. I'm like, take that back, man. You got this. You'll figure it out, you know? I don't think you should. But then again, that's a very fleeting thought. I think like having some sort of control or about duty or pleasure in your life is like a really important part of living. But it gets taken too far sometimes. We're like, well, tell us how Pat Tillman actually died. And I'm like, oh, they're not doing that. They're trying to sell ads before a game. Like they're not trying to have this discussion. You can Google it for sure. It's out there. But like, I don't know where, to your point, I don't know where this rage begins and ends. And, you know, you hear all these like made up stories being like, I grew up in France and this woke culture is really getting under my skin. I'm like, yeah, fair enough.
I just want to live in a place where I can, you know, have a fiery train derailment and, you know.
I want all the dogs to be high as hell.
Smoke my hydrogen chloride and, you know, phosgene in peace. You know, just live my life, man, without the woke mob telling you what to do.
I know, but then it becomes a reverse cop thing, right? It's just like, hey, I don't care about that weed getting your dog high. It's just like, well, why are you making the rules for me? I am just like, I just decided to, after every tweet or thought I have in my head, just put the 2 words grow up, and I'm just like, oh yeah, I can probably chill about everything.
I mean, that's like, I mean, I just feel like on the spectrum of things that you can feel victimized by, there are some really big ones. And then there's like, my dog keeps eating blunts.
I know.
Well, keep an eye on your dog.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and also it just feels like another one of those stories where like someone decided to get it out there and it has like no real stats. Like someone's like, here's an idea. Have you noticed that? Yeah, I swear my dog's high all the time now. I think they're just eating like leftover joints. I'm like, are they? Are they eating cigarette butts too? Who's your garbage eating ass dog? Well, like I hear you, but like there's no stats. You know, there's like, here's a veterinarian's like, I guess there's been an uptick or something.
Remember that McDonald's lawsuit where the hot coffee burned someone and they sued, and McDonald's had to like change the warnings on their cups, and everyone was like, why is America so litigious? You know, it's like it's hot coffee. You know it's hot. Hot coffee is how you want it. You don't want cold coffee. And if you burn yourself, you're not allowed to sue McDonald's. And then that just gets to be the story. But the real story, as we find out, is like that old lady died from those injuries, from an infection. And all she wanted was McDonald's to pay for the hospital fees when she was there. Like, that's all she wanted. And it was like, yeah, that coffee nerds were like, coffee should never be that hot. That's like industrial heat coffee, you know? And it's just like, oh, this is complicated. It's not that this person.
Oh, they spoofed it on Seinfeld.
Yeah, for sure, right?
Yeah, the woman had like something like 1st-degree burns all over her body.
She
like
died.
It's insane.
I mean, she was a very elderly lady, but the pictures are gruesome. Like, the inside of her thighs are just black with blood, like caked blood. And it's like, there was a documentary on HBO about it at one point. I think they took it off, but it was about litigation. And that documentary actually reverse copped itself, being like, litigation is good for America. It's the only way we can keep like some certain people in check. If we don't have that, we're lost, you know? So like, you should be psyched that someone can sue McDonald's. They can protect themselves. We can't. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But like, if my dog ate a whole bunch of weed and like whatever died, like, I would not be psyched.
Yeah, I know, but at least they didn't seem to be able to find any evidence of a dog that died from eating weed.
Sure.
I mean, being that it's non-toxic, right. And if they could have found it, they would have cited it. And it was just like, yeah, some dogs get sick, they get nauseous. I'm like, okay, all right, no big, no disrespect. I want all dogs to be happy, but if they're eating joints and they're getting wobbly and they're not feeling great,
I mean,
I don't like that for your dog. I want your dog to be happy and healthy and all that stuff. But they are eating a non-toxic substance here, right?
Yeah. I mean, this is a perfect lead into like East Palestine, right? They're just like, it's fine. Everyone like, go back home. We're telling you it's okay. And people, I don't know where to land on this because certain people, experts, are like, you have to just leave. It is uninhabitable for the time being. We don't know how long, but if fish and wildlife are dying, everyone should take that as a sign and just go, because we don't really know what's going to happen by tomorrow. But in 5 or 6 years, like, it won't be great. And then the government is just like, dude, it's nothing. We have it contained. It's all the way over there. You're over here. It's like, but my fish is dead over here. It's like, trust us. You're fine. So like, I don't know where to begin and end with that.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is that beyond the coincidences of how it was similar to, white noise, and that literally some of the same people in that town of Palestine, I think that's how it's pronounced, in Ohio, were extras in the movie White Noise, which is about a family evacuating from a toxic airborne event. Like, that's really nuts. But even beyond all that, I don't think it's gotten as much coverage as it probably should have, because you have people saying, well, this is like Bhopal. This is like Chernobyl. And then you have people saying, well, yeah, they're fine. It's just some floating fish. And I can't tell where to land on it exactly. I'm like, is this, like, where are we falling? What is the Alex Jones approach to this? What is the, what is the wise approach? What is the one that's cynical? What is the one that's informed? I actually can't really figure it out.
I know more about vinyl chloride today than I did last week. I watched a few handful of videos on it and like a YouTube or two. I don't know I don't know what the difference between polyvinyl chloride, which is everywhere, and vinyl chloride, and when it turns into acid rain, like, this is all news to me. Sounds fucking terrible, but like, as we're watching all these zombie evacuation shows, I just rewatched Chernobyl, and like, one of the big conflicts of that show, the same guy who did the zombie show, was like, if you tell these millions of people to leave their homes, where do they go? Like, we can't take care of them. they're just dead. How do we tell them they're dead? Because they're still alive. And it was like such a depressing tension in that show. But like, how do you tell somebody who's lived somewhere that they have to leave when the dangers there, when we don't even know what the dangers are, right? Like, it's like, well, you just have to go because you're going to get cancer in 5 months to 5 years. Like, it will happen. And they're like, okay, well, I work over there, so if I don't show up to work, I'm going to get fired. And my cousin hates me, and they live far away, so, like, do I stay in a hotel? I don't really have money. I have 2 kids in school. Like, go where? Will you give me $20,000 for a hotel for a few months, a year? How much? I don't know.
Well, let me tell you this, Andrew. It's the first time people in a place called Palestine have been mistreated by a government.
It feels scripted. It just feels insane. Like, the details are just weird.
It does, and maybe we're just in this post-apocalyptic moment. And you had mentioned the HBO show, The Last of Us. And it was funny. I was scrolling around through, I don't know if it was Netflix or whatever, the other night, looking for something to watch, and it's like, here's The Road, The Girl with the Gifts, Children of Men. Just movie after movie, even ones I didn't even know the name of. Just so many movies about an adult and a child making their way through a post-apocalyptic world. So many. So I watched the 5th episode of The Last of Us on Friday or Saturday. I guess it was Saturday.
They gave it to us early, yeah.
They gave it to us early because of Super Bowl Sunday, yeah. So I watched it. And I had a eureka moment, Andrew. I really did.
Go off.
I came to God. I was watching that. I don't know if this is spoilers or not. I'm going to avoid them. But there was a woman who runs a militia, and her character was just so cloyingly preposterous that it just veered towards unwatchable. It was just incredibly corny and impossible to watch. Then they added in like a deaf black child, and then they brought in these ridiculous monsters. And I'm like, wait a minute. I'm watching a zombie show based on a video game. It's like snapping out of some sort of stupor or fugue state. I'm like looking at my clothing. What am I wearing? Are these hokas? Where am I? I've been watching a show for children. I tell you, man, it was a real moment of crystallization.
The real, no spoilers. This is not a spoiler. I guarantee it. But like when there's certain zombies that
do it to him, Quo. Do it to him.
They all die. No. But there was like a seemingly like hierarchical rank to the zombies, where I'm like, oh right, you have the main boss. This is a game, and I think all games are kind of trashy. Like there's no like well-written game. I guess Metal Gear is kind of cool, but I don't know. It was spoofed on SNL, like it's a me, Mario, and it was all dark and stuff. But it really helped me with this show by rewatching Chernobyl, because this director's, I've only seen 2 of his things. I think he's done music videos or whatnot. Like, he's obsessed with the idea of like The Walking Dead. And like Chernobyl was an insanely intense show with no fun. At least The Last of Us has a little bit of fun to it, because it has like the levity of a game or some sort of like procedural of a zombie show that we've seen before. Obviously Pedro Pascal is hilarious, so that helps. But it is not my favorite thing that this prestige network has done. I still really love it, but I agree. Like, I think the first episode was awesome, and now it's kind of like going through levels, right? The levels of a show, which is interesting in its own right. There's certainly something to be taken away from that, but the idea of everyone, the best question, the best idea of zombie movies, like who's the zombie? You know, like in Star Wars, like who's the Rebel Alliance? Who are the terrorists in Star Wars? You know, like that's the interesting part. Not that Lucas was thinking about that, but I think by the time we get here in the zombie show, it's just like, well, who are the zombies and why do we care? And who is alive and who is dead? You know, like that's an interesting question. I wish we could talk spoilers because there was interesting things in this last episode, but all I'm going to say is I wish the outcomes weren't decided by creatures with no personalities, because they develop personalities and I want to see the outcomes of all of these conflicts, but the zombies get in the way of everything.
Yeah, this one was just, without spoilers. It was just that there's a militia leader who...
Wildly popular actor, Melanie Linsky, who's great.
I'm not even talking about her as you know, an actor or her ability or her craft, but there's something about her character on the show that's just so implausible and annoying. Like she's like this Nurse Ratched type character who talks in this super folksy way, but is also just absolutely brutal. It's so fucking cringe.
I didn't mind it as much, but I know what you mean.
I just felt like this episode, in comparison to some of the other ones that were kind of more artful, this was like, oh, this is schlock. Let's not forget, as you said, it's video game stuff. This is not this poignant, like well-crafted thing. Excuse me, that's not fair. It is well-crafted, but it's at its heart, it is goofy, dumb monster shit. And like, here comes the boss zombie.
Yeah.
You're like, all right.
My least favorite part of it is the young girl that he's trying to protect, young woman, because she talks like an Aaron Sorkin character. She's like, I don't know, what is it? What do you think? I don't know, whatever. Like it's Jesse Eisenberg in the Social Network, and I find her to be a little grating, which they kind of pointed to in the last episode. No spoilers, but like someone asked her if she's ever not scared, and she's like, I'm always scared. I'm like, well, they're asking you why you're so annoying. The viewer would like to know why you are so annoying. But
I interviewed Jesse Eisenberg once, and I got to say he was the fastest talker, I think, of anyone I've ever had to transcribe notes from.
Did Woody Allen create a genre of real person?
Maybe so. I just remember going through like, you know, this was in the tape recorder era too. It wasn't even like on it.
Oh, damn. Yeah.
I don't think it was digital. I think it was like a little mini tape. It was a very long time ago. And yeah, it's like, I mean, it was like a 15-minute interview and like 9-page transcript of just everything he was saying. I mean, he's very bright and a good interview, but yeah. Like,
yeah.
That guy talks fast.
Is that a New York thing? Or is that just an annoying thing?
Is there any difference?
Because I got to admit,
Bing bong.
I talk like that sometimes, and it's not about smart stuff at all. I'll just be talking about like what I bought at the grocery store, but in that annoying tone. And I know I'm being annoying, but that's why I don't have mirrors in my house, so I don't have these tape recorders, these analog tape recorders everywhere where I can hear my voice, because you'll just be chilling and then hear your own voice.
Yeah, that would be really annoying.
That sucks. But anyway, the show's good, right?
I thought the show was good, or at least pretty good. That last episode was rough. Maybe it'll redeem itself. Maybe I'm out.
Oh, I wish we could talk spoilers, because I thought they missed a real opportunity to turn the whole show on its head. But it's
just
a video
do it.
game.
Just do it, you bastard.
Okay, spoilers. Pedro
how it's done,
Pascal
man.
goes into the building to assassinate a sniper. My hope was that the sniper kills him and the African-American man becomes the keeper of this small child, or this young woman has a cure for this disease. And they continue on the journey with the African-American man, his son, and her for the rest of the show.
Yeah, I get that.
Interesting, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's not how the video game goes, I guess.
I guess not. Yeah. We're all just following the plot to Castlevania here.
Hey, that Rihanna performance. Woo! Super Nintendo vibes, man. Same.
Also, before we move on to talking basketball a little bit, because we don't need to do that much. We really went through the full gamut of trade talk when we did our deadline special. It was perfect. So
And the NBA observes the end of the football season accordingly as well. The schedule slows down and the All-Star break hits.
Yes, this is true. But before we get into that, it's just RIP to Dove from De La Soul. Plug 2.
A group that didn't really transition to the streaming world because of contractual issues, licensing, a lot of conflicts. Sadly, I believe March 3rd was the drop date for all 8 of their albums. They were building up to that. But we knew something was wrong when De La performed at the Grammys and someone was missing. Dove was missing. So it was a poorly kept secret that he was ill, and he had passed away a couple days ago, a week or so after that performance on the Grammys. And I had spent the last few days listening to the De La stuff that I have, because I don't have a record player anymore, so I can't play my records, just the stuff online. And that was a really good group, man. As good as I remember.
Yeah, I saw them perform a long time ago, even before Stakes is High.
Balloon Mind State tour?
Yep, that's what it was.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and they toured with Tribe Called Quest. I was like,
I remember that tour.
Or something.
Yep.
I definitely was not in my 20s. Absolutely not.
Wait, did they go up to Rochester?
Yep, it was the Rochester area. And I thought I always preferred Tribe to De La, even though I like De La, but De La I thought put on the better show. They were really, really good live. Just a lot of personality. They did a great job, and I like De La. And some of my friends were like super, super De La guys. Maybe it was this. This may be the same today amongst kids who listen to rap and talk about rap. Like maybe there's like, hey, I'm a little baby dude. I'm I'm a thugger guy.
No one's a little baby dude anymore. Woo! That fell the fuck off.
That's true. I'm a gunna guy.
Yeah.
You sure? I was a gunna guy. But there were people like, I remember like one of my good friends. He was like the EPMD dude. Someone else was like, oh, he's really into Gangstar. This guy's Tribe. This guy's NWA, whatever. And so I one of my friends was like very much a De La guy, and he dressed a lot, like Paz de News. Like same hair, same glasses, same kind of floral shirts.
It was a different world, right? Keith Haring kind of stuff.
Yep. It was that Daisy Age vibe that De La really like changed in rap and brought that to the forefront, just as a stylistic sort of aesthetic choice. And
definitely,
I mean, they deserve to be celebrated for that. I personally felt like some of their older music fell into the bucket of Kermit or of curmudgeon. Like spending more time kind of disliking modern rap than creating alternatives to it, if that makes sense.
I thought your slip of Kermit was also appropriate because it does sound like children's music now at times. And I love Prince Paul. Like, holy cow. I think he's one of the greats. I mean, I'm a Gravediggers fan. But he made those 3 records, like De La Soul is Dead, 3 Feet High and Rising, and Balloon Mind State. And some of 3 Feet High and Rising is classic, joyful stuff, but it sounds like it's for kids.
He also did a lot of third bass his first album, right? If I remember correctly.
I believe so. I mean, he had his footprints on quite a bit. My friend, I was talking about this on Twitter. My friend posed a good point. And we've talked about Dilla before on this pod. But he was just like, yeah, as soon as you commit to Dilla in your discography, you start declining. Not to say you do in the moment. Stakes is High is a wonderful record, for sure. And there's parts of Artificial Intelligence that are great too. But he was like, look at what Dilla does to bands like Tribe Called Quest, like De La, like Common. Like, he ruins them. And I'm like, and this guy is not, he's a DJ. He's not cynical. He's just like, he ruins all my favorite acts, man. What's going on with this guy Dilla? Rest in peace, you know? And I had to go through and I'm like, he doesn't not have a point here. It's a music point, not an ethical or moralistic point. Just musically, I'm like, maybe so.
I have said the same thing about Dilla.
Yeah.
Not trying to steal his take. This is something I remember saying
Yep.
at the time, where I respect him as someone who, you know, really was into the craft of beat making, and like, okay, I'm gonna take this bass line and chop it up and use these snares, and like, he was like your producer's favorite producer, because like, oh my god, I can't believe he took that little thing and turned it into this. But I would say, yeah, if you look at him working with Tribe, Common, D'Angelo, Erykah Badu, or at least being brought into the fold of people who produce for them, I can't say I thought that they made better music as a result of his collaboration.
Yeah.
His sound was just a little too muted for me, a little too, like, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a little too low wattage, maybe? I don't know.
It's unambitious stuff in its details. Overall, his vision is extremely ambitious, but one song does not really tell the story of what he's trying to do. Whereas, like, I think DJ Premier is a maximalist, you know. But with De La's catalog, it's interesting because, you know, famously after Balloon Mind State, they cut their ties with Prince Paul because apparently the vision for the fourth record was not in line with what the three guys were thinking, and they put out Stakes is High, which is the Dilla-centric record. And like, that was their turn to the melancholy. If you like, I know I love using that word, but if you listen to the lyrics of that album, like, these guys have become sad, right? Like, they're no longer these annoyed, childish, goofy dudes who are high talking about rap. All of a sudden, by Stakes is High, they're like sad older men. And I thought that's what made that record so great. I mean, the title says it all, right? Not to be heavy-handed, but it is a record that with not much joy, but a lot of like precision and a lot of, it was just like a singular thought. And I thought it worked so good. Some of those rhymes, I was like listening, I haven't heard that record in a decade or so, but like, not okay anymore. Zoomers should not go and listen to that thinking that it's going to align with how we talk in 2023, because there's I don't appreciate those words about like women and LGBTQ people. It does not age well in that regard. As an artwork, it exists really well in 2023 still, I think. The language is off, though.
You know what has aged gracefully from the 90s until now? Josh Hart.
Wow.
The
Ja Rule,
talisman.
New York. Yeah. Ooh.
Talisman of Bing Bong Nation. He is Red Cafe, who has out of position rebounding skills. Uncle Murder with a jumper.
Dude, he's hanging out at Avenue and Lavo before the delicious Super Bowl treats.
How are you feeling about Josh Hart, member of the New York Knicks? He was acquired at the trade deadline. They gave up a future first. I believe it's somewhat protected, maybe lottery protected.
They own his flea rights.
They have his, yeah. They can re-sign him with the Magic rights. Correct.
I'm as delighted I was when I heard the news. Even more delighted knowing that he's such a boomer. Like, this guy loves Fat Joe as much as James Dolan does. They're two peas in that Fat Joe pod, man. Him rapping along to Ja Rule when he posts up on Instagram is just like, chef's kiss. I love it. He is going to be a bing bong superhero, man.
Yeah, I mean, I just kind of want to listen to like Fabulous's first album.
Fabulous is an amazing rapper. Like, yes. But do you think Josh Hart is even doing that? I think he's like Ja Rule's perfect, right?
He could be Ja Rule. Is he Immortal Technique?
No, you're getting too niche with like Bing Bong. So I was trying to figure out what a typical Bing
All right,
Bonger's
he's chic Luch.
what does a typical Bing Bonger's night look like or day? They wake up in Mamaroneck. They drive down. They go to their desk job in Wall Street. They have the company's season tickets to the Knicks. They're pretty close, button-down shirt. They have like the shrimp cocktail. Am I overshooting this? Are they kind of in the 200 seats? Are they wearing Walt Frazier throwbacks? And are they taking Metro North back up to Mamaroneck?
Are they wearing Timbs?
Or are they eating at Carbone? Like, what do you think the Bing Bonger is doing? We need to decide what a Bing Bonger is, because
what are the name for the sweatpants that have like the really
Zubaz?
prolonged the really prolonged tight ankles?
Oh, I just call them like track pants, or like they're not, but they're tapered sweatpants, right?
I think those are a big part of this. Everyone looks vaguely Mediterranean.
There's obviously
From which side, no one really knows. But just
Right.
Mediterranean adjacent.
we're not even sure if they're white. This gets very complicated, but right. So I have it wrong. They're not company men. They're not Patrick Bateman, Bret Easton Ellis stuff. They are more Long Island, and they definitely show up to the Garden dressed up in their favorite throwback. They are the ones who have a shrine of Knicks bobbleheads, correct?
Yeah, that sounds about right. But I mean, yeah, it's just like kind of look at, like, here are some places they might be from: Spain, Portugal,
Mamaroneck,
Morocco, Algeria,
Pelham,
Tunisia,
Larchmont,
Libya, Egypt, Israel,
Ardsley,
Syria,
White Plains,
Turkey,
Scarsdale,
Greece, Turkey,
Greenville,
Albania,
yeah, Dobbs
Croatia.
Ferry, Rye.
Italy, Monaco, Andorra.
Croton-on-Hudson. All the wonderful places on Earth.
Deer Park, Nassau County,
Yeah.
Riverhead, Islip, North Islip, Central Islip,
Can you imagine?
Northport. Most of them are just from Northport.
Can you imagine if two Bing Bonger, talented Bing Bongers, wrote the story of Michael Jordan and his sneaker odyssey? Woo! That'd be incredible.
To me, I think you're talking about the film that Ben Affleck is making about the history of Nike and
Right.
its relationship with Michael Jordan. And like, this is cool. This is cool because I believe in representation, and I think that some Gen X dudes from Boston who have powerful voices in the media deserve to tell their stories about basketball.
Right. Like, I think we're a little starved of like the Bostonians' worldview, especially when it comes.
What do they think
Yeah.
about hoops? When are we going to learn what's inside that little chowder container of a skull?
Like, yeah, who better than fans of such greats as Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, Peyton Pritchard, to tell the story of the GOAT, Michael Jordan?
If we follow them to the end of their rainbow, and we look inside that pot of gold and we find it's full of glittering hardware, the Marcus Smart Award, given every year to the Marcus Smart who most exemplifies Marcus Smart attributes.
Yeah,
That's the people that I want to hear from. The silent generation.
I'm looking up directors from Chicago who would be better prepared to make this movie about the what is it? The extracurricular, or the not the basketball journey of Michael Jordan, but the off-court journey, The Odyssey. I'm just laughing. David Mamet would be hilarious. I always thought he was from New York, but that's pretty funny. But this is even better. Christopher Nolan. That would be so epic, man. Just fucking epic. A lot of like bulletproof vests and a lot of like high-tech weaponry. Ugh. I can't wait for that version.
Which timeline are we on here? Are we on the Jordan Bulls or Jordan Wizards timeline?
Well, every bounce of the basketball signifies a second in our time, but 10 years for the characters. So they're getting younger as the shoes are getting older. I'm going to see how that works.
But couldn't we also find a director from Portland, because that's where Nike is based? Mm-hmm. Like, for example, Gus Van Sant.
You're the man now, dog.
Or Miranda July.
I mean, Gus Van Sant is BMM if you think about it. I mean, how you like them apples? He is BMM adjacent, that's for sure. Wait, who else is from Portland, though?
Yeah, he directed my own private first team All NBA award.
Oh, wow. Woo! I was like, where's he going with this?
Oh, I was going to stick the landing. You believe that.
Shoe store cowboy? I don't know. Is that what we're doing? Oh, it's about being addicted to sneakers. Can't stop buying them.
You got any thoughts about the new look Nets?
I was hoping for Yuta season, man. So I was also hoping You, the show, was more about. There would be more Yuta in You season 4, but there wasn't. More intimate scenes involving Yuta. But yeah, the Nets look cool, man. Are they the most likable team in the NBA now? Probably, right? Like,
see, I don't know, man. This all just felt so reactionary. No, that's the wrong word. Reactive. Like, oh, the two awesome guys who we villainized are gone. How fun are these guys with no expectations? Remember how they were a contender the other day? And now look at them. They're just having fun out there. This is the team I like, who poses no threat to anyone else. They're just long and skinny and playing like they have a ebullient love for the game instead of the heavy heft of a crown weighing on their heads because they're trying to actually win a championship.
But
That said, they're pretty fun.
They are pretty fun. I cannot be 100% Pollyannic about the big three Nets. There was a little bit of misery involved there. I mean, like, can you guys just fucking play basketball? There was some of that, at least, right? Of course, I was like, yo, this is the coolest group of skilled villains ever. But then a part of me was like, can all you guys get on the same page so we can maybe see half a season? And we never even got that. I was like, God damn, can you guys just like destroy the league finally? So there was a little bit of misery, I think, in that concoction. But to your point, this version has no expectations. And I think they're all kind of funny. Now Joe Harris isn't annoying. He's just funny again because we don't expect him to hit 40% of his threes, you know? Like, do whatever you want, Joe. Dinwiddie coming over and being like, yeah, that wasn't the best return for Kyrie, but we're more handsome. I'm like, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, so I watched that game against Philly, obviously. And, yeah, I thought they had a lot of potential defensively. You know, maybe, I mean, a month and a half ago, we met up with fellow believers in Ben Simmons. And then they exist out there, folks. They're at the highest points of media around. We keep a low profile these days. But we were there, lurking beneath the surface.
That's right.
But we were cheersing with flagons of ale, mead. Like, Ben Simmons is back. Then he messed up his hammy, missed 7 games, and just has no athleticism at all right now. He's just walking around out there. He's a shell of himself. So you look at these guys they have, and there's a lot of shooting. There is a lot of defense. There's not a lot of creation. So just theoretically speaking, if at some point this year, down the road, Simmons can get his body back in order, that could be a really, really compelling team. As they are right now, I saw them kind of blow the game down the stretch against Philly. They took Simmons out. And again, he's a shell of himself athletically. It's obvious. All of his success comes from being big and smart. There's no athleticism or explosivity going on there right now.
Yeah.
And they took him out of the game, and they promptly, just hemorrhaged a whole lead because they couldn't create anything. And I feel like this personnel with him, again, hypothetically, could be a really cool and annoying freaking team to play down the stretch. Without Simmons in that role as a facilitator, they just can't do it. Right. They don't have the passing. They don't have the creation. I like Dinwiddie, but he can't actually carry a team down the stretch on a reliable basis and just generate enough good shots for your offense to be functional against good teams. Solid player. I like Dinwiddie. He's good. He's a funny dude.
Mikal Bridges might be an all-star at this point, though, right?
And Bridges is really good, but again, they just don't have the creation there.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, they're missing something.
You could see that, and that's where I'm like, if this team is going to make any noise, and Ben Simmons isn't healthy yet, man, sit him out until he is.
Totally, I agree. There's nothing at stake.
Like this version of him, if you're just saying, okay, look, his knee is messed up and he's not going to be himself ever, but all these little whispers was Vaughn being annoyed about his preparation. The guy clearly just can't run. But if you want to make noise with this team, you got a guy who could really help that out. I don't know if we'll ever see it at this point with the Nets, considering how optimistic I was about the talent they had and the fact that we just never got to see it. I am not crossing my fingers that we will ever get to see Simmons, the creative force as he was in Philly, surrounded by all these 3-and-D guys and all this length and all this shooting and all this disruption. But there is at least is hypothetically a very cool team there that could use his best attributes, at least of the past, for pretty interesting results, I think.
This is just the smoking flash mob car on the way to the destination. I don't think we can really get a grasp of what they want to do, because I don't think they know what they want to do. I think they did a reasonably wise thing in just collecting as many talented players and valuable draft picks as they could. And then they'll figure it out later, where that I don't expect to see Simmons on this team next year, but
no, I agree. I don't think they said, okay, we're going to get rid of Kyrie and we're going to get rid of KD and we're going to build around this limping guy who's played a total of 24 games for us. That's our key. I agree with you. I'm just saying the personnel that is there now, his skill set of creativity is and not needing to actually score a whole bunch himself would fit with the personnel they have. Whether or not we get to see it, we may never.
Yeah, and I don't think Nets fans should jump ship. I mean, we were talking about this. It's there's no Nets fan that currently exists over the age of 15 that hasn't had a heel turn. You had to either fly in the face of the Knicks or the state of New Jersey or something to become a Nets fan. And I don't think this is time to bail, because there's a lot of good things happening here. But I got a couple texts from Nets fans this week being like, yo, I have a lot of tickets for games. They're not as expensive as Knicks games, but they're not cheap. And I'm going with my family. I thought I was going to go see KD and Kyrie get ready for the playoffs. And now who are these guys? Can you tell me about Mikal Bridges? And I'm like, he's awesome, but yeah, it's a different experience for sure. Does Joseph Tsai, who is in fulfillment and in Alibaba's whole endeavor is customer service and fulfillment. How do you make your fans happy now? Despite he bit his nose to spite his face. He is kind of ruined the trust of the fans to a degree, I think. But they should hang tight. There's good things happening, I think.
Yeah, I had a good time watching them. I thought they were cool.
Yeah.
And, in the way that teams that have no narrative arc can be against Philly, they seem to be like a breath of fresh air. These guys have never played together. Look at them scrapping out there. Look at them cheering each other on. And then, you see Embiid like misthrowing a ball to Harden and it gets stolen in a layup, and they all kind of like shrug their shoulders and roll their eyes and yell at each other. Like there's no freight of expectations on this group of Nets like there were on not only the prior incarnation of the team, but also teams like Philly. So let's talk Sixers for a quick second here. They traded Thibault for McDaniels. We'll see. McDaniels looked okay defensively. I did not like that move, and it seemed like it was for more cap purposes than basketball purposes. And then they went on the buyout market today, and they brought back one of Sam Hinkie's favorites, Dwayne Dedmon, giving them a fifth potential center on the team. And he took the roster place that they had stashed since they released Isaiah Joe, who since signed with OKC and is currently leading the NBA in three-point field goal percentage.
Whoops.
All in all, last week has not been that sweet if you were a Sixers fan. They did not improve their roster. They added a useless, not good center that they didn't need anyway, and it served to crystallize the fact that they had, for no reason whatsoever, given up Isaiah Joe, who had proven himself repeatedly to be a high-caliber shooter, for nothing. So all in all, in the Sixers season, which is not unsuccessful, they're winning games, it was yet another not too exciting moment in terms of generating optimism for a long run during the postseason.
And shout out to Sixers Nation, who just saw their team almost get a Super Bowl, and and now we turn our attention to their basketball team, and it's like the signing of Dedmon is so funny because even before that I was like, this team reeks of like Popeye's chicken sandwiches, White Claw, and like Beyonce's lemonade. Like it just feels like we've been here. It's like, have I seen this before? Have you seen this before? It's like, have you tried this seltzer that's like will get you so fucked up like that even just having N seltzer will erase your mind. Like, and then Dedmon comes back, and I really believe in our take that we kind of fleshed out last week. That's like they are not going to win a championship this year, not because they don't have the personnel. It's because their coach has weaknesses that are well discussed, and he doesn't have the right motivation to act on successful habits that could win them a championship. Like, it will not happen with Doc Rivers, which is sad because we could just take them off the table, I think. But it is Morey doing a good job?
To your point about Doc, there are certain attributes of him as a coach that I think Sixers Nation harps on that they don't like, and adjustments or preparation, motivation. Those things to me are not the big ones. I think one common denominator that people do mention a lot, though, of course, are his adjustments. People mention that. I don't know if they even think they mean by adjustments. They just like to say it.
Right.
But his adjustments are terrible. I mean, right? They give up leads, but what is it though? But I think we have also reached this point where, if you are fairly familiar with Doc Rivers, the knocks on him, and adjustments are one. And I will say that I agree that he does not change his game plan even when it is unsuccessful. Two is that he doesn't play young guys, and he does not believe in player development, and his teams never seem to be able to bring guys up through the various stages from.
But what about Maxey? We have to give him credit there, right?
Yeah, Maxey's the only one. Yeah, but for me, the main issue with Doc, and all these things can be true, are that the mistakes he makes now are the mistakes he made last year and the year before. They're the ones he made in Los Angeles. They're the ones he made in LA, the ones he made in Orlando, etc.
Possibly even Boston, even though they won that
Yeah.
Rajon Rondo's team, right?
Yeah, he keeps doing the same things over and over. And to some degree, I respect it. This is his worldview. He's going to stick to it. But, look, this is a guy who has an illustrious career as a player, as a coach. No doubt about that. And, his breadth of experience in the game is clearly impressive. But in a sport that changes as rapidly as this one has, I just feel like being completely married to your ways and being hostile to anything that threatens your basketball worldview, be it a player or an idea, it just seems like you're creating a ceiling that is going to be incredibly tough to win a title with. When you just will not explore lineups that are asymmetrical or weird, you will not get away from all bench lineups, you will not play young guys, you will not develop talent, man, you're cooked. What are you going to do? So when you ask me the question, has Daryl Morey done a good job? I don't know. Because if we just give him responsibility for all the personnel decisions, the same way we give Doc responsibility for everything that's happened on the court, let's just say the buck ends with Morey. If Morey is the one who signed, Trez, Morey's the one who lost draft picks to get Tucker there. Morey's the one who just signed Dedmon. We can't say that's Doc, right? Even if it is, we can't say that's Doc. That's Morey. Morey did that move. Morey's the one who traded Thibault. If you look at his body of work in Philly, I think he made good trades. He got good value for Simmons. I thought bringing in Seth Curry was a good deal. The Melton deal was a good deal. The Danny Green Horford deal didn't end up very good, but it was solid in principle. He's drafted some talented guys.
Right.
He drafted Maxey. I thought Paul Reed and Isaiah Joe and Bassie were solid guys. I don't know what to make of Springer.
Niang
but
was
at the
nice.
end of the
yeah.
I think he's done a good job. But ultimately they haven't created any new talented pieces coming up through the system other than Maxey. They keep bringing on these veterans. Ultimately, I give him a B.
Well,
maybe a B minus.
Remember, he brought in Harden. That was his crowning achievement. Right?
Yeah, that was a great deal because the more we look in retrospect, I think they were trading damaged goods and they got away with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, incredible. And fans wanted Buddy Hield for Ben Simmons, and he got James Harden. Incredible, right? But we knew Simmons had value at the time. But I think it's hard. At one point, if the chef sees every dish goes by and he doesn't make them, he's not on the line, he's not the server, but he expedites, right? So if someone doesn't like something, it's not on the server or the chef, or the line cook. It's on the chef. And I think, but then as soon as I have that thought, I think about the thing Clyde Frazier always says, right? The Knicks cannot handle prosperity. And when you prosper with a player like Joel Embiid, who's this good, who is in the top 3 of the MVP discussion every year he's healthy for the next 5 years.
Every year.
How are you a good GM when you've won, for no pun intended, the lottery, right? You have gotten the thing everyone wants, Joel Embiid. And then Joel Embiid has a certain set of personality traits, certain set of tendencies on the court, preferences as to who his coach is, what he wants in his career. And you're Daryl Morey and you're like, Joe, sit down and talk to me. What do you want from your career? He's like, well, obviously a championship. I was like, on which terms? He's like, well, Doc is my guy. I believe in him. He's a close friend. It's like, cool. Looks like we're going to have to keep Doc Rivers. Like, what else? It's like, well, I don't like this Simmons guy. He's kind of annoying. It's like, all right, got you Harden. And I don't know what a GM does. And of course, I'm making concessions to my favorite GM because Daryl Morey does stuff I enjoy. I understand my bias. But I wonder what a good job would look like because what you don't see is what's good. And the Sixers are in the discussion for a championship. I would claim that's a good job because they could easily not be in the discussion for a championship if Morey does not make the Harden move, the Melton move, and drafting Maxey, right?
It's so hard to separate who the Sixers have and how they're used. This team is so paunchy.
It's a bunch of Shrek-ass players.
You know, they've had the personnel to create these angular, mean-spirited lineups, and they don't. They just stay paunchy.
I know. They're so dangerous if they want to be.
You know, but we never saw Thibault, Melton, Embiid, Harden, and like one other defender. You know, we just never saw
Paul.
those lineups.
We never got B-ball Paul.
We just never saw these things, you know. Even going back a couple of years, we never got lineups with Simmons, Embiid, you know, Thibault, Danny Green, and I don't know, like another defender, or I don't know, like George Hill. But whatever the case, we just never got these like all the defenders. Or let's go the other direction. We're gonna have Harden, Embiid, and then just chuckers, absolute chuckers everywhere, like Niang, Danny Green, and Furkan, whatever. We just never got to see these things that, like, theoretically are really interesting and dangerous. And if you even went in and looked at some of the lineup numbers on these, they were successful, but in very, very small durations. But you look at them and say, like, well, why wouldn't Harden and Embiid with 3 chucking floor spacers be completely unguardable?
Yeah.
How would that ever be a team that you could stop from scoring 140 points per 100 possessions? How would you prevent that? You can't. Or how could you score on this team with this lineup? But we never see them.
And
we've
talked about these lineups, ad nauseum. And I think
Facts.
like the new thought that I think we have is, let's just admit that, like, and I'm not trying to even hedge here. I don't think the Sixers are going to win a championship with Doc Rivers, as you mentioned, as you detailed really well. And then you have to look right up and be like, well, whose fault is that? And then you have to talk about the guy who's his boss, right? Like, if Doc Rivers is a fine basketball coach, this team is good. This team is winning games. But to all the things you mentioned, this prevents them. What good is it if it prevents them from beating a team like Milwaukee or Boston or, I don't know, any one of these teams in the West? Like, the Sixers have no chance, I believe. But they're so close. They're close enough to get there, but I think they lose in every kind of simulation of it. Like, I don't know if Morey can go out and, like, relieve Doc of his duties. We've talked about this every time they had, like, a 5-game losing streak or a bad spell. It's like, now is your chance to do something optically that will be forgivable. And you don't have to be cruel about it, but you could elevate him to a different position. You could talk about maybe Doc Rivers just like ending on a high note in his career. All these things are doable. Of course, the BMM would have a field day with that, but Doc Rivers is their guy. So like you have windows to do it. I don't know. The GM, I don't know what the GM does. I don't know what the ownership group does. I don't know how much power the superstar has. But this is like a good situation in Philly, but just good. I don't think they're going to get there. And I don't think we should talk about them moving into the playoffs as a contender.
Yeah, I agree with that. There's just no reason to expect. This is what is the cause of it being a dismal feeling.
Yeah.
And sort of a just a plodding nature to the team is that these are the same problems that have happened for multiple years. You can go back and see what we wrote before the playoffs 2 years ago and last year. And in both cases, pretty much outlining how, like, well, if Doc did these things differently, if he stopped doing this certain thing, if he got away from all bench lineups, if he just would stop playing this veteran and play this young guy, if he was more creative, over and over, And the first one had some optimism. The second one was increasingly less optimism. And now I think, like many people who follow the team, there's just no optimism at all.
No.
Doc will not change his ways. He will not ever stop doing the things that he likes doing because that's who he is. Yeah. And you don't elevate that guy to a new job. You fire him.
No,
you don't say, Doc, we're I know, but we're not going to even keep you in the building, man. You've been here 3 years. You got a 5-year contract. You made the majority of your money. Get out of here, dude. We don't even need to be like, oh, we have so much respect for you. Just beat it, dude.
Fair enough.
Fine.
Fair enough.
Get you out of here. And look, if Daryl Morey really was serious about winning a title this year versus just moving pieces around and making moves that are shrewd, the Melton trade was a good one. If he was really serious, he would have wrestled control of this organization to himself. He's got his man in there as like team president or CEO now. Yep. He's got a lot of power. He's got a lot of money. I don't know the dynamics in the front office, but like, I'll say this. From stuff that I have heard,
let's go.
I think Joe is like more in on Doc than he is on Morey. And I know that's surprising.
No, that makes sense.
And I know, but most people would not think that's the case.
Right.
But I think it is. So when Joe was out there the other day talking about Thibault and saying, I hope we keep him, he can do a lot of good things. It was easy to read that as him being critical of Doc not playing him. Mm-hmm. But it could easily be also seen as him being critical of Morey for trading him. All I'm saying is what things that I've heard.
Hey.
I've been kind of surprised by stuff that I've heard that makes it sound as if Joe is kind of fine with Doc.
He made him an MVP guy. I think Joe is fine with losing.
More issues with Morey.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe he is, but that he, look at after the last playoffs. He didn't sit there and say Doc messed up. Harden did. Harden said there weren't plays called for me. Doc said Harden's washed because he wanted someone else other than Harden to be in the Simmons trade. That wasn't the trade he wanted. He said Harden's washed. He said we don't have dogs. Those are against Morey.
Yeah.
Those were both shots at Morey. He took no shots at Doc. And that follows with what I've heard. So if the Sixers struggle and don't make it out of the second round or even crumble in the first, I would not be surprised if Doc is fired. But I don't know what that Embiid-Morey relationship is like right now. I just couldn't tell you. And I think there's a reason that Morey went out and got those guys that Embiid wanted, and I think that was to keep him happy.
Hey, man, in the Cookies Cup number 4, I believe it's number 4, the Knicks were ahead for 3 quarters. And I was like, they're not as good as the Sixers. In no world are they as good as the Sixers. But I would not be shocked if they won. The Knicks at this point, that was before Josh Hart, I believe. But the Knicks are good. And I think a team like the Knicks can beat the Sixers. I wouldn't say that about the Bucks. I would say that about the Celtics. But, I think, this is where the Sixers are. It's clearly better than the Knicks. That's what they are. That's where they are.
I mean, if I'm Philly, I want no part of the Knicks with a healthy Mitch Robinson in the first round of the playoffs.
Ooh, especially when you add the Ja Rule. So we need to get a good nickname for Josh Hart, man. There's no the Hart connection. Cold-hearted kill. What are you doing with this, man?
I just mean there is a good chance that they will play first round.
Yeah, let's go. Oh my God, Cookies would be lit.
The Cookies revolution.
We got to go to these games. We might have to go to Philly for one of those games, man.
Bing bong.
Fuck your life.
I love cookies.
Cookies.
I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.